All right, y'all, they spent $1.5 billion acquiring the rights. Did they pull off a good show? Let's talk about it. My name's Bright Life. This is my fancy shirt, and I want to talk to you guys about Rings of Power today. Let's jump into it. All right, first of all, there are going to be spoilers in this review because really this is just like a Lord of the Rings gaming nerd and Lord of the Rings lore nerd. I have the freaking two swords in like the books. Come on. I just want to talk about it. I just want to talk about it with you guys. And so if you like stuff like this, please let me know in the comments. If you want me to do reactions to every episode on the channel, I'd be very happy to. But if you guys are like, dude, just stick to games, that's totally fine too. Let me know in the comments below. Before we get started, please leave a like on this video. That actually really helps more people see it. It's free to do. It's super fast. Just click that little thumbs up button for me. That would be awesome. But first, what I want to do is I want to talk about the good sides of this show. I think there are three things that this show just does decently well, really good, and then I want to talk about the things that I'm not so excited about. I want to talk about my bads on one side as well. I do think that this show, for me, from a non-spoiler view, if you haven't watched it yet, you've been waiting for me to put this out and you're saying, should I watch this show? If you're a Lord of the Rings fan, I think you should. I don't think that you're going to be totally wowed by the show if you're a deep lore fan, but I do think it's worth watching because this is going to shape the future of Middle-earth creation, okay? Like, this is going to be a lot of people's real foray into the Lord of the Rings, especially in the younger crowd, and so I think we should know what's in it. And I do think it's okay to watch. I don't think it's perfect. For me, it's a solid 6 out of 10 right now, but let's talk about why, and that's where the spoilers are going to come in. So if you don't want spoilers, definitely click off this video, but if you have already watched it, let's talk about what I think is good. Okay, so the first thing I think is good, the visuals. Holy cow, they're like insane. They're so good, and this is proof that if you give a good special effects team, a good graphic design team, enough money to work with, they will produce things that will blow your mind. And really, every single scene from this show, every single like little story like block has a moment where I'm just like, oh, that could be one of my 4K screensavers on my screen. Like easily it could be a great screensaver. Easily it could be a great wallpaper. You could make great phone wallpapers out of this. Like, this is just so beautiful. I mean, really, most of these you could probably print on a wall and people would be like, what is that from? Like, it really has that visual appeal. And I would give Amazon huge credit for this because even other studios that have put together epic masterpieces spending a lot of money haven't gotten near this visual fidelity. I mean, it's a beautiful show. I found myself multiple times going, wow. Like, legitimately, when they come over the hill and see Valinor and the two trees, I'm like, wow. Like, when the fireworks go off, I'm like, wow, that's really good looking. Khazad-dûm, I'm saying, wow. Eregion even, I'm like, that is so beautiful. It's awesome to see a really great representation of the second age of Middle-earth. And so that's where, like, from the good side, on the outside, it's a really great show. I really do think so. I think especially from a casual's perspective, which I hope this appeals to casual fans, I think it has a great look. The second thing that's incredible, like, oh my gosh, is the music. Bear, what's his name? Bear McCreary, which I will not forget his name again, don't worry, because he's gonna become mega famous for doing music after this. It is awesome. Like, Khazad-dûm's theme is incredible. The main theme to the show is really beautiful. I think Howard Shore wrote that one. Howard Shore's amazing, but I do think that Bear's music really stands up to Howard Shore's. Even the Harfoots, who I don't like from a lore perspective, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. I don't like those, but I love the music. Every time the music came on, I was like, man, I'm cozy right now. It's just a cozy song. It's beautiful. And so I do think that from a musical perspective and a visual perspective, both are great. And honestly, the Lord of the Rings series that Peter Jackson did, those are two reasons that a lot of people really jumped into Lord of the Rings, is because the music and the visuals were so stunning and so great. And so I really am excited that they really carried that over into this show. The third thing that I think is really great about this show is they do have a lot of really fun lore callbacks. It humanizes the show a little bit in a way. You know, when Amazon first bought this IP and they began developing this, I think the big fear was that it was going to be a bunch of just corporate suit garbage. Like, it was going to just be kind of like some Brooklyn or like, you know, San Francisco, like washed Lord of the Rings stuff. And I'm not saying anything about lifestyle choice there. It's just Lord of the Rings has a specific niche that it's trying to fill, and you have to know the backstory to really do it well. That's how Peter Jackson did it, and I think he did a great job. But these guys very obviously know their stuff. There were even some little poking fun of and little lore hints in and throughout. Like there was Luthien in one of the trees with Huon the Hound, which was really cool. Even one of them, like the little joke that they had in the beginning where, you know, a fell beast of the Nazgul was taking down an eagle in the fight, it kind of answered the question, well, why don't they fly the ring to Mordor, which is so many casual fans have asked. Well, we can now point to a scene and go, well, that's exactly why. Sauron had an air force as well, and so that wouldn't have been very good. And so what's really cool about it is there's those obvious little lore drips and lore leaks that allow you to get excited about the world. Even when Galadriel goes in, finds Sauron's mark in the first episode, Sauron is apparently tempting with the unseen. He's looking at the unseen realm and trying to figure out how to work that with the physical realm, which obviously calls into the idea of the Nazgul. You know, they exist within the unseen and the seen realm, because obviously at some point Sauron figures that out and is able to work that in a magic way. I think the other thing that was cool, I mean, even in the lore perspective, was they called Sauron a sorcerer and a deceiver as opposed to just this evil dark lord. And of course, in the Peter Jackson trilogy, you just had him as kind of this big bad Dark Lord with the big eye on the tower. And don't leave me comments. I know it wasn't a real eye, but let's just let it be. And I thought that was really interesting as well. I thought that was cool, but I thought that them having him be like a deceiver and a sorcerer, and he looked super badass in this frame that he was in, like, that's awesome. That's really cool. And again, it shows that it's almost like it's not just corporate jargon. It's actually the showrunners knowing the lore and actually working with it. And again, with the lore, I want to be careful with the lore, because I think a lot of us have put a lot of the blame on Amazon for not having the lore perfect, like not having Balerion to be mentioned. But we have to remember that, like, legally, they only have rights to a very specific set of lore. They can't actually go into the Silmarillion. I think the impetus for why this show doesn't have a lot of the Silmarillion lore is probably because of the Tolkien estate in some way, form, or fashion. I'm not trying to throw blame on anybody, but you know, if the Tolkien estate wanted Amazon to make a phenomenal show that had all the lore that they could use anything, then they should have just given them the rights to the Silmarillion along with the other stuff on a limited basis. That's just my opinion, but hey. But those are the goods. I think from the outside, and even a little bit in the lore perspective, we have a decent show, and I think that really made me excited. And there was a lot of Lord of the Rings magic. Some of the combat was great as well. And you know, honestly, on the good side as well, I mean, I think that my fears were a little bit eased about Galadriel. I thought that she was going to be some kind of whiny princess, and she wasn't. She actually had great motivation to go after Sauron the way that she is. She had this really cool fight scene that made me think, oh dude, that's rad. Like the elf fight scenes that are almost a little bit ridiculous but are kind of fun to watch, the old school Legolas stuff. I thought that they did a really good job with that, and so I am excited for the future of those things in the show. But let's talk about the things that I'm not so excited about, because for me, in the first 2 episodes, I see like this outer shell of a show, and I know that they could fill it in well, but there are some things that on the inner shell of the show I'm nervous about already. The first one is really just the story in general. I'm just not very excited by it. It's exciting to think about what it could be, but in 2 hours, it hasn't hooked me, which if you kind of took that and compared that to Peter Jackson's trilogy, let's just say like in the first 45 minutes or 30 minutes of the Peter Jackson trilogy, I was hooked. Like, as a kid, hooked. I was ready to watch the whole thing. I was so ready for more. That's why I still watch it all the time. I go back to it all the time because it's a really great show, and they hook you right away with the Shire and the story, and it's just beautiful. But I don't think that this story yet hooks me. The characters are not that great, to be honest with you. The only ones that I'm really rooting for are Galadriel and Elrond, and that's because I knew them from the books and the story, and so I know their story. I'm looking forward to seeing how those go. The original characters have not hooked me yet. I think that the Harfoots are very fun to watch. I don't find myself cringing as much as I thought that I would, to be honest with you. But to be honest with you, I just think the story has not hooked me yet. And I think why this really matters is because, of course, Amazon has said this is going to be the next Game of Thrones. Well, it's kind of funny and cheeky that I think that HBO found out when this show was going to release, and they made sure that by the time this show had 2 episodes out, House of the Dragon had 2 episodes out. And having watched both shows, I will just say House of the Dragon just obliterates Rings of Power as far as story goes. The characters are deep and complex. Their motivations are totally rock solid and great. They're not like wishy-washy in any way. They're just great characters. The story, the dialogue is awesome. It's intriguing. And Rings of Power doesn't have that yet. I think that it has some real shining moments of intrigue and some real shining moments of making me care about the characters. Like when the orc is walking around in Bronwyn's little cabin tent thing, whatever. awesome. I was scared. I was legitimately like hiding behind a pillow. I would never hide behind a pillow. I'm a big bad boy. I would not do that. But I was a little bit scared, TBH. And it was a really good thing. And I thought that they did that decently well. There were some moments, but overall, I don't really care about the characters yet. I don't really care about the story, and I want that to change. And maybe it will change. I know that people will probably point to things like Breaking Bad, things like Game of Thrones, having a little bit of a slow start. My only pushback would be, even with both of those shows, after 2 episodes, I wanted to know what was coming next. And I find myself a little bit bored with the story so far. Just total honesty. Again, that could totally change. I'm open for it to change, and I hope it changes. I want this show to be awesome for the next 5 years. But for now, it just feels a little bit boring, and I think that at some point, the casual fan will feel a little bit bored with the show if it doesn't really develop itself. But it's only been 2 episodes, so we'll have to see what happens there. The other thing that I thought was a little bit rough was just some of the lore choices. I think that they could have still gotten away with making great lore choices, even without access to the Silmarillion. I still think the Harfoots don't make any sense, because you guys can call them hobbits. We can call them Harfoots and not hobbits, but they're hobbits. I mean, even in the trailer, they're like, my heart is bigger than my feet, you know? So stupid. I almost threw up on stream when I heard that the first time.
With our hearts even bigger than our feet.
But that's a stupid line. But I just don't think they're justified. And I think that if hobbits play any significant role in the Second Age, well, then it completely negates how surprising it was that they were heroes in the Third Age. And so I'm nervous about that. I hope that doesn't become a thing, but it might just. We'll have to see. I still don't know why Gil-galad is this really weird, like, prissy king. Like, he was the king that eventually killed Sauron with Elendil. Like, this is an awesome, incredible character, and I just don't feel like they're doing a good job with him right now. He's just kind of meh. I don't like him as a character yet. Like, the fact that he's able to declare that Galadriel will go to the Undying Lands was really strange. That doesn't really make sense because elves choose to go to the Undying Lands when they feel called to go, but he just is like declaring it, and he's almost declaring it as like a punishment. That doesn't make any sense either. It doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know. I didn't like that very much. I thought that the dwarf thing was okay. Like Khazad-dûm being a really beautiful interior, but the exterior was just like this little small door. I feel like it should have been like a grander entrance. Why is Celebrimbor, this elf lord, like going alone to Khazad-dûm? It doesn't make sense. Like, there are some other things, like why are the elves so intent on forgetting the past? It seems like in the books, they're the ones that are always reminding people of what happened before and warning people, but right now it's almost like they're just like, let's just be at peace and nothing's happening. It's very strange. I just don't really understand that one. But they're just some lore choices that I don't love, but maybe they will flesh out in their own. But really, it goes back to me, my biggest bad thing is that the story just doesn't compel me yet, and I'm just not super invested with the characters. I hope that I get there. Maybe I will. I know that other shows have done a much better job of that very quickly. Just like, I mean, honestly, House of the Dragon, it's the best comparison to this show right now because it's what this show was trying to be. They're both kind of coming off the hype of big epic fantasy with Game of Thrones, and they're both piggybacking off of great IP, and I just think that House of the Dragon is doing a better job with its story, where Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power is doing a lot better job with its visuals and its music. We're gonna have to see what happens, but hey, I really don't, I don't know if I love it yet. I think it's a 6 out of 10. I'm looking forward to seeing the next episode. I think that if I were just casually watching it without a critical eye, I probably wouldn't be very excited. I would probably remember, like, oh, in 2 weeks, oh yeah, shoot, 2 episodes have released. I need to go watch those. But I wouldn't be like waiting on the edge of my seat like I am for when House of the Dragon comes out. I mean, I'm like ready for the next episode. I'm just not that way yet with Rings of Power. But hey, maybe my mind will change, but I'd really love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know. We are going to be doing a video soon about what I think it means for Lotro and how I think it's going to affect the Lotro growth. But for now, I just wanted to talk about the show by itself. Let me know what you guys think. Did you guys like it? Am I totally off base? Am I being too critical? Or are you guys just like, I think it's awful. I think it's the worst show ever. Let me know in the comments below. I do read those. It'd be awesome to hear from you. I do want to give a massive shout out to our patrons. Thank you so much for helping this channel stay alive and thrive. If you guys want to join our Patreon, if you guys want to become patrons and help see more videos come out, you can join at the link below. You can support from as low as $3 per month. I hope you guys have an incredible day. You are more loved than you know, more valuable than you realize. I will see you in the next one. Hey, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. I want to let you know a couple ways to connect with me. First of all, we got an awesome Discord in the description. We've got a Patreon if you'd like to give to the channel and help support more video creation. And I am live on Twitch quite often over at twitch.tv/brightlifecommunity. Would love to see you there. Always love interacting on those live video streams. But I hope you have an incredible day, my loved and valued friend. Have an awesome one.